All right, so today we're going to go over our new Ultra Course View. We're going to start with a quick little overview. Then I'm going to show you the feature guide, which is a really helpful tool when you are planning your conversion. We'll talk about shell courses, converting courses and shells to Ultra, because right now everything defaults to the original course view. You do have to run a conversion, but it's real easy. I'll show you how to do that. And one of the reasons we do this is because we do recommend that you build your new Ultra courses in shells first instead of requesting your course and building in the live course, because and I'll talk more about this later, but shells are a safe space. They are designed for faculty to have a place to go and develop courses and experiment with course design. So without messing up an actual live course, you can't teach out of them, but other than that, they are exactly the same as your courses. And so copying from shells into courses, especially using Ultra from Ultra to Ultra, is pretty easy and quick. But again, we'll talk more about that later. Um, after that, we'll talk about different ways or different sort of workflows you can use to migrate your course, and a few recommendations we have for making that migration process as smooth as possible. And then hopefully at the end, we will have time for questions. But again, if you have a question, just ask. You can also drop them in the chat. I do my best to keep an eye on that, but sometimes I don't get to them right away. But anyway, so before I move on, are there any questions? All right, I'm going to take your silence as a no. Okay, so currently we are in what we are calling dual deployment here at NIU. That means we have both the original course view, which is right here in the middle, and the Ultra course view are available for instructors. It is your choice which view you want to teach out of for now. That will be changing in a little over a year. The end of the original course view is planned for December 31st, 2023. So you've still got time, but it's a good idea to start thinking about it and making the switch now. Everybody is on this Ultra base navigation. And this does cause a little bit of confusion because people see the Ultra base navigation and think, oh, my courses are in Ultra. No, that is not the case. You actually have to go into your course and convert it in order to be in the Ultra course view. You can tell the difference between the two because the original course view has the menu along the left side in dark gray or black. The Ultra course view is a lot lighter. It does have a details and actions menu on the content page, but the other pages don't have that menu available, whereas like an original, that menu on the side's always there. Okay, the reason for this switch is because our original course view has been here since 2011, and quite frankly, it's a little old. It needed an update. This is what Ultra does, right? It's a little more what I like to call Facebooky, I guess. It's just more of a modern interface, more what people are accustomed to and quite frankly expect from software. It is, when the original view was designed, mobile computing was not as big of a thing, right? Now it is all over the place. Our students are using it quite a bit to interact with classes. So Ultra is designed to be a much better mobile platform. The idea is that you get essentially the same experience, whether you are on a computer, tablet, or a phone. Part of that redesign increases accessibility, and it should be fully responsive, like I said. So you should get the same experience no matter where you're at, and it's consistent across all platforms. One place you are going to want to visit is our Ultra website, or web page, I should say. You can get to it from just our web page on teaching, but you can also go to niu.edu/blackboard/ultra. It'll bring you right here. If you click this Ultra tab, that will offer you several different options for, and gives you a lot of information about Ultra. The two you're really going to want to pay attention to are this feature guide, which I'll talk about in a second, and the what's new in Ultra. Now, the feature guide, this is a side-by-side comparison of Ultra to original. So they've taken all of the functions that are available in original. They've listed them up, and they're telling you basically which ones are available in Ultra, which ones are being discontinued, which ones have changed and how they've changed, and which ones are being developed. One nice thing about Ultra is it is still being developed, so they're adding features and functionality all the time. So this is another good place to come. Like our Ultra web page is a great place to come and check for updates. But this has a side-by-side comparison. We do our best to keep it updated, but the changes come pretty fast. So, if you have questions about something, you can always contact us. We also have this What's New in Ultra, which basically sort of gives you a quick little synopsis of some of the new features or the features that are planned for release in the very near future. Gives you a little bit of explanation about what they are and how they function. So that's another good thing to look at because, like I said, Ultra is constantly being developed. So, you could look and for a feature 1 month and come back the next month and it might be there. So just continue to look. And again, you can always contact us for additional information. Okay, a couple of the changes that, and some of you are probably aware of these already, but one of the big changes in Ultra on the base navigation page is this activity stream, okay? This is a page that consolidates all the activity in your courses on one page. So if there's a due date, if something new gets added, this will show up in your activity stream. The important thing, or a couple of important things to remember about the activity stream, it is individualized for the user. So each user will have different stuff in their activity stream, which of course makes sense because everybody has a different class schedule. You will get notifications from courses you're teaching and courses you are taking in this. So if you are an instructor who is taking courses as well, it'll all show up in your activity stream. But I think the most important consideration is to remember that the activity stream is customizable and it is controlled by the end user. So what that means is that, yes, these notifications are all going to the activity stream, but the end user can actually turn off notifications. You as an instructor may have already done this because if you are teaching and taking several different courses, that's a lot of activity that happens every day and it can be a little overwhelming. But, just it's important to remember that you don't have control over that. The students do in your class. So just remind them that, they can turn that off if they want, but they're still responsible for the information, right? Just because they've disabled the notifications in their activity stream doesn't mean they aren't responsible for turning stuff in on time. Another nice addition is this calendar, which displays, again, it consolidates everything into one calendar. So it should display scheduled classes and due dates for all of your courses on this one place, so it makes it a little easier to keep track of. Again, this is customizable, so you can turn on and off which calendar notifications you receive. And also this grades tab. This is a feature that is handy, but it kind of depends on how you use it. What it does again is, and this is the idea behind this base navigation page in general, is the grades tab has this overall view, right? The consolidated view of all of your courses in one location. So this sort of has replaced that needs grading function in the Blackboard original. If you go to your grades tab, you will see all your courses displayed. Any work that has been recently turned in and needs grading will show up there. And it's nice because you can then jump into the grading workflow just by clicking on that. Another item that's fairly new, it's actually been out for a while now, is this Assist tab. This actually will connect you to all sorts of campus resources that are outside of Blackboard. And again, these are going to be different depending on your role at the institution, but for the most part, it's all of these other campus services like tutoring help, counseling services, things like that, club and club information, all that kind of stuff. All right, another change, and this is one I really like, is the announcement pop-up. Announcements in Ultra have changed a little bit from original. You can send them out as emails as well. One of the nice things, or one of the features that has come with it is that you can schedule your announcements. So, you can schedule your announcements ahead of time for the semester and have them go out, like say, announcements that the test is the next day or whatever. But the change that I really like is this pop-up window. And what this is that anytime a student enters your course, if an announcement has dropped in the time since they were last in the course, they will be greeted with this course announcement pop-up window that sort of puts that information right in front of them. Now they can click through it, and I can easily envision a scenario, right, where a student is trying to turn in a paper they've been working on and it's 2 minutes before the deadline. They don't want to stop and read the announcements. That's fine. They can just click through it to get into the course if they want, but it does tell them that there's a new announcement and that it's something that they need to check on. They can go and check on it later. But this is, like I said, this is something I really nice because it forces the students to at least see the announcement is there. Okay, and they have to click through it to get into the course. So there's really no saying, oh, I didn't know there was an announcement. There have been quite a few changes to the messages. One is that there is this messages tab on the base navigation page. Again, like the calendar and the grades tabs, these consolidate messages across all of your courses into one location. And you can enter the messaging flow from just by clicking on the tile. You can't see it on this shot here, but down at the bottom here, you will see if you have new messages in a particular course. This plus icon over here, if you click that, that will allow you to create messages. Messages can be sent to individuals, groups, or the entire class. If you don't see the plus icon, that is because the course itself is not open. The course must be open to send messages. But if you click that tile, it takes you inside the course, and you can also click the messages tab to get to the same thing in the course. But once you're in the course, obviously, if you click the messages tab, this is going to be a message specific to that course. So again, you can send them to individuals, groups, or the entire class. And just as a reminder, you got to have that course open. If you don't see this plus icon, that's because the course isn't available to students, so you won't be able to send messages. All right, there were a lot of changes in the gradebook. One of them is this gradebook list view. This is basically on the gradebook list view, you will have a list of all your gradable items, okay? All you have to do is click that item to enter your grading workflow. One of the big changes in the new Ultra experience here is that you do have to post your grades. So this is nice because it allows you to sort of grade as things come in, so you don't necessarily have to grade all at once, because you can hold off posting all the grades until, say, after the due date, things like that. And you can also get into your assignments to edit them if you want to click the kebab there. So another big change in the gradebook is the student list view, which you click by, or you get to by, you see you got the gradable items and you click students here. That'll take you to a list of your students. This is where you're going to go to access the date of last access for your students. So if you do have to pass out or give out an incomplete, or a student fails the course, you do have to enter that date of last access in MyNIU. So that's where you go to get that. And this is, you can also add accommodations from here. This is another big change from the original, is that now when you add an accommodation for a student, like say they get 50% more time on a test, you don't have to add it to the actual test, you just add it to the student. So it will apply to all assessments after that. So if you say, hey, Mike gets an extra 50% time on all assessments, then anything that's timed, if it's an hour, I will get an hour and a half. You can also add these accommodations from the course roster, which is under the details and actions menu. We can talk a little more about that later, but that is a big change, right? You don't have to add accommodations for a person each time, or for each test. You just do it once and it applies to all assessments. But don't worry, there's still this gradebook grid view. You can see there's these two icons up in the corner here. The hamburger is the list view. If you click the grid, you'll get to this more traditional gradebook view. I'm sure you're all familiar with this type of view. Again, you come here, you can see where if there's a new submission, it will show. You can click to grade it, click to get into the grading workflow. You can also override just by clicking in the cell and entering a score. That will automatically create an override if you need to do that. And you can also come in here, and if you have, you can see how it labels it posted. If it's not posted, you can also post your grades from this particular view. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment to take a drink of water and ask if there are any questions. Are there any questions? All right, I will take that as a no. So moving on. Okay, there are a few changes to our gradebook features. One of the biggest, and it tends to be a little bit problematic because there are plenty of instructors who like to grade with points, but currently the overall grade is percentage based only. They told us points are coming this summer. I thought they were supposed to be in this latest release, but I did check today and I didn't see them. So they're not here yet, as far as I can tell, but they are supposed to be here fairly soon. I do know that points-based grading is something that is holding a lot of people back. They don't want to have to convert everything to percentages, and I certainly understand that. But again, check our website. You can, however, calculate your overall grade now with a mix of categories and items. This is a nice change. Before you had to do either or, which if you are doing the item view, a lot of courses have several graded items. So you would end up assigning very small percentages to a lot of items to get up to 100. Being able to mix categories and individual items makes it much easier. One of my favorite new features is the automatic zeros thing. This means that if you enable that and you have a due date and a student does not submit work by the specified due date, they will automatically get a 0. This is very useful for large courses, right, where you have a lot of students to keep track of, and you have to entering those zeros manually is sometimes a time suck, right? Um, but another nice thing about this automatic 0 is that it gives the student a very accurate picture of where they stand in the course at that moment, because um, Blackboard does calculate a student's grade and is sort of a running total, right? And it's based on the work that has been turned in. So if they don't have a 0 in an assignment that is past due, Blackboard just doesn't even consider that as part of the total, right? It thinks that that is just not something that's um, needed in the calculation. So if a student has missed, say, the last 2 assignments that have gone out, and they don't have zeros there, when they look at their grade, they will still see that old grade they got. Let's say they got, they were going great guns until those 2 things, um, and that would knock their grade down, but they won't see that unless there are zeros in the actual grade book. Okay, Janet's asking if the new posting after grading is also required for items graded automatically. You can set that up. So you can set up the um, that that's a great question, actually, Janet, because we did have some issues with that earlier. Because at first, any test that was machine graded posted the grades automatically. So now they've added a little. There's a option where you can delay the posting until after a specified date or when everything gets turned in. So that's a great question. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? Yeah, I agree, Janet. There are some great new features in Ultra. It does, I'm not going to lie, they still need to develop some things, but they really do have a great start. I think it's overall, this is going to be a much better experience for both you and your students. But anyway, continuing on, with the percentages, right? You cannot add extra credit automatically by creating like 0-point assignments, because everything is graded by percentages, right? You can't add, nobody can give 110%, unfortunately. So you're just going to have to add that manually for now. This is something that we have asked Blackboard to add. They've talked about it as something that's going to be a feature that will be added, but right now we don't have a timetable on that. If there are a couple of workarounds. You can create you can, and this is a workaround if you want to use points in your course too, but there is a way to create a calculation to convert the grade book to points, but it's kind of a pain. But if you do that, then you can add extra points for extra credit. Although I think it's a little easier just to tell students, hey, if you complete this assignment, your extra credit will be 1 percentage point added to your total or whatever like that, and you can just add the extra credit points manually. Extra credit is something that a lot of faculty use, so it is something that we would like to see added. Rubrics now are both percentage and point based, so that's nice. And the drop score is part of the overall grade. So when you set up your overall grade calculation, that's when you're going to set up the drop score. All you do is you add a rule to a category, and you can drop up to, like, if there are n number of items in the category, you can drop up to n plus or n minus 1. So you can drop all but one of the scores. You can set it to pick the middle, things like that. So there's a little flexibility there too. Another big change, and this is really for purposes of mobile navigation is that there are only two levels of nesting currently. One thing I see a lot in original courses, especially if they are courses that um, someone has been teaching for any amount of time, um, folders keep getting nested inside of folders, right? That's fine. It's great to have all that information in the course. And that's sort of, how you build your course out, right, over time. But unfortunately, a real deep nesting structure is not good for navigation on a mobile device. So what Blackboard has done with Ultra is they've limited you to only two levels of nesting. You can have a learning module with a folder inside, inside the learning module and the folder. You can put as many items as you want, or you can have a folder with another folder inside, but you can't go any lower than that. A lot of times that deep nesting structure will cause an error if you're moving things from original course, but mostly what that does is it just flattens everything out, which can kind of create a mess when you're converting, because if you have a really deep nesting structure, it will just basically move everything to that lowest level. So instead of having all these subfolders, you'll just have a whole bunch of stuff. And it will require some cleanup. Another great feature or new change is this sequential release for modules. This means in a module, you can basically set it up so that students need to go through content in order. So, and then they can't access the new content or the next piece of content until they've reviewed the previous piece. Yes, they can click through things if they want, but it's just nice. It kind of gives them that structure, which is helpful or can be helpful. One thing I'm going to go back to about the nesting is if you're converting or moving a course that is heavily nested, you might want to consider just moving things to a more ultra friendly structure before you start bringing items in. It'll keep things cleaner, and I think it will make your life easier, but everybody's a little different. If you're okay with having a whole bunch of stuff and sorting through it, go for it. Yeah, Janet, thank you for that question. What I mean by a more ultra-friendly file structure is you're going to take your folders that are down deep and move them up. Okay, so instead of having a folder inside a folder inside a folder inside a folder, you'll take those two lower folders and move them up to that level where you only have then a folder with another folder inside and items in that. That'll make it a little easier. But as we'll talk about in a minute, um, there are a lot of different copy options. So if you do have a heavily nested course, you can copy things over. You'll just have to do it sort of in a different way. It might take a little more time, but it will work for you. We'll talk about that in a minute. But excellent question. Okay, when it comes to moving your course to Ultra, to migrating your content from the original course view to the Ultra course view, keep in mind that this is not going to be a straight line thing. I, I don't I sat through all of the sort of pitches we got from all the other LMS providers when we were doing our review. And I know they all talk about how conversion is easy, but in my experience with all of these different things, none of them are easy. It's never a straight line. There are always things that can go wrong and sometimes do go wrong. So you need to be ready for that, right? Expect the unexpected. And as the Hitchhiker's Guide tells us, don't panic, right? There's nothing we can't fix, right? But if you do good planning, chances are you're going to limit any of these little problems, and it's going to make your transition easier. Um, when you copy over from original to Ultra, sometimes you will see these exceptions. They have different priorities. The low priorities you can really almost ignore because they are just very minor, for example, format changes or small items like that, things that really don't affect your course. Medium priority items are uh, are more like sort of feature changes, so something might work a little differently, or something like that. It's the high priority changes you really want to take a look at because those are going to be unsupported features. So that's when they're going to be removing stuff from your course. It may happen with the medium priority too, because like if they remove formatting, that counts as a medium priority change, but usually, like that's like removing italics or bold or changing a font, something like that. So, really, if you look at your course, a lot of times, those medium and low priority really don't affect anything. It's the high priority ones you want to take a look at. So before you do anything, right, make sure you take a good look at the Ultra course view. You can do that by requesting a shell, converting it to Ultra, and just sort of piddling around in there. You can contact CITL, where some helpful member from our staff, like myself, can sit down and talk to you about converting to the Ultra course view, and sort of lay out a plan, because that's really important, right? You can't really plan too much for this. So that's what I recommend, right? Plan, schedule an appointment to talk with us and review that plan, just to make sure there aren't any items that maybe you missed or some sort of consideration that maybe you weren't aware of. It's a great idea to schedule an appointment with one of us. You can, a one-on-one appointment for, you can schedule it for an hour. You don't have to be there that long, but um, where one of our staff will sit down and go through this with you step by step and sort of help you along this path. When you're making your reviews and your planning, right, look at those tools carefully and look for deal breakers, right? If there's a tool that you have to have to assess your students and it's not available in Ultra, you might want to wait a little bit, right? You might want to find a workaround. You might want to find a third-party option, something like that, right? But look for those things, because the last thing you want, right, is to be in the middle of a semester and realize, oh wait, that assessment I copied in doesn't actually work. And finally, sign up for the Ultra Transition Academy. We are just concluding our first one right now. But we will have another one in the fall. You can check out our website. It's not scheduled just yet, but I think it will be fairly soon. This is a 3-week course. It generally should be about 2 or 3 hours of work per week, but it sort of runs through how to transition your course from original to ultra in a little more detail than I can give you in this 1 hour. Okay. One thing I do recommend is that when you are making the move, especially if you have, like Janet was saying, she has a heavily nested course, all right, you may want to consider sort of a limited copy and conversion as you rebuild. Now, all this really means is that instead of just copying in your entire course and letting uh, it converts to the Ultra course view, you'll just bring things in a little at a time and convert in smaller chunks, essentially. Okay, this is nice because the Ultra copy tool allows you to copy granularly from any course. Okay, what that means is you can copy a single item, right? In the original course view, if you wanted to copy in, say, an assessment, you had to copy your folder of assessments and bring that whole thing in. Now in Ultra, you can actually drill down to an actual item and copy in a single item. You can copy in an entire folder, copy in an entire module, copy in an entire course. It's up to you, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. But bringing in these smaller chunks allows you to bring in stuff from different courses and sort of do the conversion process in slow motion, if you will, so that you're not overwhelmed by just a sea of these errors that conversion problems that you want to address or at least check out. You kind of do it, you know, in smaller steps. One of the other great features now we have is this in Ultra is this ability to copy within a course. So that means that you can copy items inside your course. So you could set up, say, a module template that you wanted to use in your course, and then you could just copy that module template over and over again instead of having to recreate it every time from scratch. Okay, so we're going to talk about sort of these suggested workflows. I will tell you, all of my suggested workflows start with creating and converting a course shell. This, I think, is a step that is well worth taking because it is a place for you to, as I mentioned earlier, it's a safe space for you to develop your courses away from students, right? So you can play around with things, you can try stuff, you can experiment with design and different ways to build things, and it won't affect your students, it won't affect your current course, right? It's not a good idea to be making tons of changes in building, you know, during the semester, but if you do, shells are a great place to do this and then copy your items into your course. Um, it's safe, it's easy, and if you don't like what you have, you can just get rid of your shell. Faculty are allowed to have, um, yeah, the question came in about creating a course and leaving it unpublished. This is actually not quite the way Blackboard works. Um, what a shell course is you can use that sort of as an archive. Okay, you can create your course in a shell, and then every semester you have to request your new courses. Okay, so every semester when you request your new course, all you will do then is copy your materials from your shell, your archive, into that new course. Now you could do the same thing in original, right? You could copy from a previous course into the next semester. Anybody who's done that several times uh, realizes that that can cause problems because it brings a lot of duplicate stuff. It duplicates a lot of things in original, and eventually that can kind of create a mess. And that's why I like using a shell, because each semester, then each subsequent semester, you copy in that shell, you're basically starting from scratch. All right. Also, having that shell means that when you're teaching during a semester, if you are going along and you realize, hey, gosh, this particular material is now, no longer relevant or out of date, you can remove it from the shell, and so the next time you copy in, it's just gone, it's ready to go. Okay. So basically, it's not sort of like you publish those courses, but creating shells allows you to sort of create an archive of a course. Did I answer your question? I hope so. So anyway, when you create a shell, you start from the base navigation page. Okay, you'll click the Tools tab. You'll go to Blackboard Faculty Tools. You'll see a thing up in the corner that says My Shells. You'll click that. Then you'll up in the right corner on the new page that opens, you click Request New Shell. You will It will prompt you to provide it with a name, right? It gives you the abbreviation and a number. This can honestly be anything because these are just for you. It's a little easier, I think, to stay organized if you keep your courses named, what you're going to be, what they are, right? But sometimes you may want to give it a different name or a number, like say the number I have there, 007, because that's not something that's going to be used, but it's easier for me to remember, right, to access it later. But honestly, that name does not matter because these are just for you. But once you've decided that, you click Submit, and you will have a new shell. It only takes a minute to create it. But once you've requested that shell, then you do have to go through the conversion process, because as you may remember from earlier, we are currently on dual deployment, and when courses are created, the default view is currently original course view. Now that will change, but for right now, you have to convert to Ultra. So if this is a brand new shell, the first time you open it, you will see this pop up. Okay, all you have to do is click try the Ultra course view, and that will convert your course for you. Empty or shell, either one. It's the same for both. Um, Empty courses and shells, without content, convert really quickly. If you may need to refresh to see the change. But if you don't see this pop up, up at the top, you should see this orange box with a pencil inside of it. And that's what you'll click, and that will bring up this pop-up, and you can convert your course. If you do not see this icon here, that's because the course is available. The course has to be unavailable to convert. Now you'll see this padlock icon here is red and it looks closed. If the course is available, this lock will be gray and it will look like it's open. All you gotta do is click this to close it. You'll see the pencil icon pop up, click that, convert to try the Ultra course view. Now, when courses are converted, they start in a preview mode. This is to give you a chance to look at stuff before you commit to Ultra. If you are converting an empty shell, that's really not an issue. So just go ahead and confirm the conversion. You really need to confirm your conversion and say, hey, I'm using Ultra to fully move into there. You can do stuff while in preview mode, but if you convert back any items or content you've added during that preview mode will be lost. And please understand that once you've converted your course fully to Ultra and committed to that conversion, you can't go back to original. So just make sure you're ready, or make sure you know when you want to do it. All right, so once you've converted your Ultra shell, you're going to open it, right? You'll see basically, you'll land on the content page, and hopefully we'll have a little time to demonstrate this. But when you land on the content page, you'll see a lot of white space because you won't have any content in there. But if you hover your cursor over these gray lines, you'll see this sort of plus icon pop up. Okay. The plus icon in general means you're going to be adding something to your course. You may see this in different spots in the course. And another great feature in Ultra is that these plus icons appear in different places. That's because you can add content, or when you choose to add content, it will appear in the place where you select. Okay, so unlike original, where if you add a new assessment, it just drops it to the bottom of the list and you got to reorder it. Here you can actually build things and place them where you want them from the get-go. I do recommend doing that because moving items with the drag and drop, you can do it, but it is a little sensitive and I don't like it very much. So it's just easier to start where you want to be. But by clicking the plus icon and opening this create panel, this is where you go to create items from scratch, right? You can create a learning module folder. You can create what Ultra calls a document, but I always refer to as an Ultra document because I don't want people to confuse this with a Word document, because an Ultra document is really kind of like a stripped down web page. You can add images and other media to it, as well as text, so it's not strictly like a Word document. You can also create assessments, assignments or tests, and discussions and journals. So all from this. Excellent question, Janet. The difference between a module and a folder essentially is that a learning module allows you to sequence or release things in sequence. That feature is not available in a folder, but really they are just, all they are containers. So in practice, other than that sequential release, modules and folders are really no different. All right. This is my next option, right? Um, is as I touched on this earlier, right? We're going to copy things in small chunks, right? A single item or assessment, or maybe a single folder or module. Okay. To do that, right, you're going to click the three dots. Now, again, the three dots, or sometimes called the kebab, you're going to see in several different places in Ultra. It will give you a menu, options of which are going to be different depending on where you're at in your course. Um, on the content page, there's three dots in the upper right, which gets you to, which is one place you can go to copy content. I don't know if you noticed, but when you click the plus icon, you can also copy content from there. It takes you to the same place. This kebab up here in your content area too is also, and this is important because that's where you go to batch edit. So if you do copy items in and you need to change dates and stuff like that, this is where you're going to go to do that. But once you click copy content, it will open a slide out panel, and you will have a list of all of your courses. And then you just navigate to the course you want to copy an item from, and you can copy in the selected materials by sort of drilling down, simply by clicking these arrows to move further into the course. You can see here, this is my sandbox course, right? This is the whole course, but inside I've got these different folders. If I click on those folders, I can move down even closer. So you'll see, like, if I want to copy an item, I click the box. But if I want to move inside that item to copy something inside of it, I click the arrow, right? And let's see, I can't remember if I got, yeah, I don't, okay. But once you've copied something in, um, and how long it takes to copy will depend on how much material you're copying in, things like that. You know, if you've got a lot of videos, stuff. So the time will vary, but generally the copy is fairly quick. But you always want to review. It will tell you if there are conversion exceptions. Those are the low, medium, and high I talked about earlier. But you want to inspect your course to make sure it's still doing what it's supposed to be doing, that your content is available, and that your due dates are correct, right? But when you copy in bulk, you're going to have to clean things up. Copying in smaller items allows you to do that just sort of gradually, I guess, is the way to say it. Okay, no matter what you do, I always suggest going into student preview because this is how you can look at your course from a student perspective. Anytime you create an assessment, I would go ahead, jump into student preview, take the assessment, turn it in, jump back out of the student preview, and then go grade that as an instructor. You can also, if you would like, jump back into your student preview after posting that grade, and then you can sort of see what the students see when they go to access their grades. But it's always a good idea just to make sure things are working the way you expect them to work. Whew, okay, I know we're getting near the end, and we don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to touch a little bit. But, you know, you may look at all this stuff and you may decide, hey, Ultra is not quite right for me right now. Okay, that's fine. But remember, it is coming. You will have to convert by December 31st of 23. So just keep that in mind, right? The sooner you get on this, the less hassle it's going to be. I'm sure, you know, if, you know, obviously the closer we get to the deadline, you know, the more people who are going to be doing this. So there's going to be a lot more demand for help. So if, you know, if you're worried about this and need help converting, it's good to get on this right away because, you know, we're going to have more availability. We're not going to have as much demand on our time. So we'll be able to talk with you about this. And honestly, once you get rolling, it's really pretty easy. But you're going to want to start planning that migration route. Okay. If you don't like the shell you started in, create a new one and start exploring Ultra, right? Try some different things. Okay. It may be time to reassess your course, right? You may need to remove some dated materials or things that are no longer considered best practice, right? Um, it's a good time to start gathering your materials, right? You don't necessarily have to put them all in a pile in one location, but you need to know where they're at, right? So you can access them easily when you move them in. Okay. Look for workarounds for any deal breakers you may have found. And with this website down here, schedule a consultation with us at the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning, because we will sit down with you and talk about your specific situation and how best to convert your course. All right, so we're right at the end here. We only have 5 minutes left. I do want to open it up for any questions. I can stick around a little bit afterwards, but I do want to be respectful of people's time. So if you have to go, that's fine. But I can stick around and show you some of this stuff if you have questions. Nope. Janet's asking if there is a limit to how many items you can put in a folder. There is not. So that is kind of when you're sort of removing that nesting structure. You don't have to worry about that. But remember, one thing you can do with this granular course copy, right, is those deeply nested folders, you can just copy them into your course as a folder, right? So if you just copy that particular folder in, and it doesn't have a nesting structure inside it that's too deep, you're okay, right? So you can go to your lowest level, copy in any folders you have that just have items, and you can copy those directly into your course. Yep. Yes, it's asked about discussion board. I don't know if you noticed, but on the create item panel, let's get back there. There's discussion right here. This is how you can add a discussion forum directly to your course. And here, let me actually share my screen. I think it might be easier to show it to you this way. Okay. All right. I hope everybody can see that. I'm sorry, Janet, the blog is no longer a part of Ultra. I would say use the journal for that. That's sort of if it's like between you and another student, a journal is a good thing. If you want a blog, there are third-party blogs out there that you can link into your course. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to show you the Ultra course view. Okay, there's also a discussion tab in your course view. All of your discussions are here. So any discussion that you add in your content area by using this plus icon will show up also on the discussion page. You can add a new discussion here and then put it in your course, but that's a little more problematic. It's much easier if you just put the discussion where you want it in the content area and it automatically shows up in your discussion page, but students can access it from either location. All right. Any other questions? Did I get to everything? Is there anything outstanding? No? Okay. Well, I would like to say thank you very much for attending today. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact CITL or me directly. No, there are not surveys in Blackboard, but you can again tie in to like Qualtrics. So you can create a Qualtrics survey that goes out to students, and you can link that in your Ultra course. All right. Any other questions? Yep. I'd be more than happy to to run through shell creation real quick, if people think they will find that helpful. If not, it's 11 o'clock, so thank you very much. All right, well, Janet, feel free to contact me if you would like to, or CITL if you need help with it. There are instructions on our webpage and stuff, so it's not difficult. I'm sure you can do it.